Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope you've brought your drink with you, whether it's a cold drink, a hot drink, coffee, tea, it doesn't matter. We're here for Thoughtful Thursdays. And I'm Carol Henderson, Life by Design, and I help you to make the second half of your life better than the first, because you don't have to get old. You really don't have to. And we're proof of that. And I want to introduce you to my co-host, Barbara Ellison. She just had a birthday just this week. So happy birthday, Barbara.
Yeah.
And we age. We either celebrate that you don't tell anybody, or you celebrate and do it all. So I decided that this year I was going to do it all. So I celebrated for 4 days. Had something on every day for 4 days. And it was absolutely awesome. Loved it. Anyway, so
I have friends that celebrate the whole month.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm
yes,
putting y'all
no, I
on
didn't know that
notice.
part.
My birthday's in July. So
There you go.
We know that July is coming.
July is coming and it's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot. Absolutely. Well, I'm Barbara Ellison, founder of the Wellness Playroom, because wellness is about more than just not being sick. It's about being the best ever version of yourself, to have the physical and mental to just enjoy that second half of your life. So anyways, I am so excited to introduce our guest today. And we met on Facebook, I believe. And the thing is, though, Kaley is a life coach for caregivers. And I took care of my husband for 2 years. Carol took care of her husband for 30 years.
Oh.
And caregivers are the unsung heroes.
Yes.
And they really need to be recognized, and to just have some tips and strategies to number one, know you're not alone. And to for things, some of the resources that are available out there for you. So I am so excited to introduce Kaley Johnson. Kaley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'd just like to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm so honored to be just part of your conversation here today, because yes, caregiving is a very, very big deal, and it's just getting more and more, and caregivers are just not supported enough. So that's really where my passion comes in.
So exactly what when you say that, I mean, coming from a background of having a husband who was disabled for 30 years, what kind of support do you give people? Just kind of lay it out. What do you do?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, I offer programs to support people through the caregiving journey, because oftentimes caregivers are faced with a lot of unique challenges, and some may be like losing their own identity in the caregiving role. And instead of being like Carol and being a caregiver, it's like they're just a caregiver now, and they've lost their hobbies, their social life, any self-care that they're doing, so including their health. So many caregivers actually get sick themselves, even before the person they're caring for, because they're putting all of their needs on the back burner, whether it's their health or their wellness, or just all the things I've kind of talked about, and then they become sick themselves. And caregiver burnout is actually a serious medical condition. So really bringing awareness to people that when we take care of ourselves first, that's how we become the best caregiver that we can be, even though it doesn't, we're not really taught that, but that's really the secret behind it. If you're going to be long-term, especially like you can relate to that, Carol, I'm sure, is that if you're going to do this for the long haul, you have to be a priority in your own life, like putting your own oxygen mask on first, that type of a deal.
I use that term all the time with people, don't I, Barbara? Just one of my favorite things.
Yeah. So, and they often feel really overwhelmed, and they have to wear so many hats, because so many people are like thrown into this role, and they didn't really see it coming. So
Yeah.
really having to be the chauffeur, the chef, the person who gives bath. And some people are doing like sandwich caregiving, they're calling it, where they're caring for either grandchildren or children. And then they're also caring for a loved one that's older. So they're doing both, and just having to wear all those hats, different hats all the time, really getting support on how to balance that piece. And recognizing that asking for help doesn't mean that you're failing. For some reason, when we ask for help, especially in the caregiver world, it seems that somehow we're doing it wrong. We should be able to do it all ourselves. And recognizing we can't do it all ourselves. So how can we get supported? There's all sorts of ways that we can get supported. And I really dive in deep with each person's unique situation and really help navigate a plan for them so they can get their head above water again, and we can start getting them some support.
Wonderful.
I have to admit, when David, when my husband, when he was sick, so sick, and I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have Kaley on the call, was because I felt so guilty.
Yes.
When I first had realized that, friends of mine were saying, Barb, you have to go out. You can't just only take care of David. You have to go out. You have to have a life. You're not the one that's sick. You have to. And that was so hard for me. I just felt so guilty. And how could I leave my husband? I should be at home, taking care of him. And that was really a huge thing for me to get over that feeling that I was letting him down.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that saved me in the long-term care of my husband. He broke his back. Things did not go well from the surgery when they fused him. And so he ended up on tons and tons, 18 prescriptions, and then 2 heart attacks and a quadruple bypass on top of that because of the pain. And now 23 prescriptions, not 23 pills. And people think it's pills, but 23 prescriptions. But I was still running a business, a brick and mortar business. And so he was capable of getting up and getting himself to the bathroom and taking a bath most of the time. There were times when I needed to be here to do some assisting, but for the most part, there was a time that, we had to move him into the living room with one of the little trapeze things because he couldn't get up into the bed. And all of our other bedrooms are down in the basement. So he certainly couldn't get down the stairs. And so we moved him to the living room because the couch was the best he could do. And he would have to crawl on his hands and knees to go to the restroom. And so, it went from fairly good to not so fairly good. And I didn't realize how desperate it was until after he was better and I was telling his story to somebody. And it hit me. I was up in front of a room and tears started rolling down my face because of thinking, we were literally, I would stay home as long as I could. And I'd literally put food on a little table by the sofa so he could get nourishment. And then I would go to town 45 miles away and work and then come back and give him food again. And I thought, God, that was desperate. But yes, and because I was out in the public, I know that probably helped my sanity, but it also, people didn't realize how ill he really was. And,
Right.
And I hear now that sometimes family members are paid to take care of people and didn't know anything about that then. I don't even know if it was a thing back in the 90s and the 2000s, but he got hurt in 87. And our children were still fairly young then, 13 and down. So, yeah. So we raised 3 boys with the issues. So,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, my heart just goes out to both you ladies because you've really experienced the caregiving journey full force.
yeah.
And so,
and I still have him. He's healthy now.
oh, good. Oh,
Healthy
that's
and off the
wonderful.
prescriptions. So if that's something anybody needs help with, give me a call because
Yeah.
I certainly commiserate with you and tell you what we did. But
Wonderful.
But yeah, I'm just so excited that you help people like that.
Yeah. And really, like Barbara said, like that the feelings that come up, the guilt, which turns into the resentment, and it just festers all of these negative feelings, and really giving caregivers their power back by really tuning in and teaching them how their brains actually work, how to process and digest their emotions, so that once we kind of have that information, it gives us power to be able to create the reality that we want, instead of just be a victim of our circumstances. And so I really love that part of the program, where we do a lot of work with our subconscious and our conscious brain, and just learning, when we practice negative thoughts over and over, how that actually affects our lives, versus how could we reframe this, or how could we connect to a possibility versus a limitation? We already know what we can't do, but what can we do? Like looking at it from that perspective, and then taking it from there, because that's really truly where we can make a difference. And just so many caregivers that I connect with are so just like destitute and desperate for anything besides what the situation that they're in. So it's really, really amazing to watch their transformation as they are connecting back to their personal power. They're taking back some of their life, even if it's a little bit. Just watching them light up by being able to give themselves permission, like Barbara said, to go and do something outside of your caregiving role, because it's ridiculous to really think that we can never take a day off. And I talk to caregivers all the time that say, well, I haven't had a day off for a year. Like that's, I would love to record them and play it back, because they would recognize, okay, yeah, maybe we could do something different here. And just how we can get the support, like I said, there's so many ways to get support, but just having a support system, a cheerleader, steps that you can take. I offer like around the clock support for my clients. So really giving them that place where they can be supported, so that they can go and support their loved one in however that looks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You see, and I'm thinking not so much about my husband, but when my mom was dying, my husband and I were giving her care. He would stay with her in the day, and I'd be there with her at night after work. And I would spend all the time. She lived in the same town my office was. I'd cry from the office back to the house every day and stuff. Just, it was, I see that as a much rougher time than Keith, the longer term, and hers was only 6 months and everything. But
there's so many emotions that come up with that too. Like, how do you even navigate all of those really uncomfortable emotions? Like, how can we find healthy ways to process and digest them? Because we know if we repress them, they come out in ways that aren't good, or, we can actually create disease if we are not digesting or expressing and validating our emotions. So, my background, professionally, I've been a caregiver for over 25 years in all different realms of the field, but also in my personal life, I've been a foster parent, and also most recently, my grandmother, who was 92 years old, we were able to keep her at home through the end of her life. And that was really, really a treasure to be able to be a part of that, but also I can relate to many of the unique challenges that it brings. So,
well, and I think that's something we miss in our society, is having our elderly with us through that end time. Because I mean, even to the point of the funeral, I mean, back the generation before me, I don't know that my parents actually did it, but it was common in the generation, right before me, for people to care for the body at home, and people come visit in, the wake or whatever was right there in the living room. And half the time the person was laid out on the kitchen table, or dining room table, I mean, try to go have dinner after that. A family dinner.
But that was the norm. That was normal.
Yeah, we laugh about it now, but yeah, it was the norm back then. And I think we've lost something in our society in the way that we send our elderly off to a home. We have no hands-on experience with caregiving, end of life, with, it's like it's been sanitized. And half the time people don't take their children to the funeral, to the grandparents' funeral. It's like, oh, well, I don't want them to have to experience that. Well, they
Yeah,
need closure. They need,
part of life. It's part of life.
yeah.
And one of my fondest memories of that time was on the day David passed away. I think he actually passed away. My two youngest grandchildren, David and I used to always collect rocks. So we had rocks and we would label the rocks where it came from. And so the grandkids, whenever they came, they would have this basket of rocks and they would take them out, put them in, take them up, sort them out, take them out, put them back in, sort them out, just the whole 9 yards. And I have a picture of them, and Elsa must have been, well, she was born in January and David died in October. So she was 9 months old, and Matilda would have been not quite 2. And I have a picture of them playing on the bed, and they were playing with Grandpa David on the day that he passed away. I mean, he was by that time, he wasn't even really conscious, just his body was still alive.
But they were with him, and that.
But they were playing on the bed with Grandpa David. In their mind, that's what they were doing.
Right.
And just so important, because then the times, like after that, I mean, and it would just come out in just the oddest times and time frame. And all of them, it was like one day I was out with the 9-year-old and we were out for a walk, and it was just one of those beautiful starry nights. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, she said, "You know what, Grammy, I really miss Grandpa David." Because that's what we would do. We would go out for a walk after dark and we'll look at the stars. And I really, and all she said was, "I really miss Grandpa David." And I said, "Yeah, I do too." And it was like, but because they remember that. And so, yeah, it's so important for kids to have that, for them to have that closure. And so, because otherwise, how do they handle it? They don't learn to handle loss.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. They have to practice those feelings so they can learn how to have them.
And learn that they're valid feelings.
Yeah.
Learn how to process them. And I think that's one thing that's missing in so many people nowadays. And I can't even say young people, old people, it's not there. There's a disconnect. And so that's exciting that you give people that support so that they can do, I think in a lot of ways we're moving back to the old ways in our society, and that's a good thing. I think that's one thing this shutdown has done, is it's caused people to reassess and go back and think about how did they used to do these things. When we talk about how we were so shut in. Well, out on the Little House on the Prairie, they were shut in. In the movie, it doesn't show that. But, I live on the prairie. And, Barbara's seen my drive. There's not a potty stop between my house and town, and it's close to 45 miles. So, you don't, back then when 20 miles a day max speed, you didn't run to town every day. It was you and your family alone in a cabin, sometimes in a dugout, sometimes in a one-room cabin.
Oh,
yeah.
We have a one-room cabin near me that I see on my way to one of the other towns, and there was I think there was a family of 6 lived in it.
Yeah.
One room.
It's really valuable though, what we can take away from that time, like all the distractions that we were signing up for. And now that we can go back to some of them, we can really make a choice. Is this really, some place that we want to spend our time, or do we want to make, eating dinner again together a priority? Because, people got to experience that again a little bit, not be on the hamster wheel of running 24/7. So I think that piece was really valuable, but really helping people connect back to their emotions, because that everything we do is trying to have a feeling, like we're trying to avoid a feeling, or we're trying to, feel the happiness. So really inviting people into like making friends with their feelings and not being afraid. There's uncomfortable feelings, yeah, but that's how you feel the good feelings. Like you were saying, you have to learn the sadness and the part of life so that the happiness piece. And they're just feelings, they're just energy, and energy just has to move through our bodies. And literally it's as simple as that. But we aren't taught that. So to kind of get in there and support people in that way is, like I said, it's like literally just giving them their power back, and instead of feeling powerless to whatever circumstances is happening in their life with their loved one, to really, that is one of the key pieces, and how we look at the situation through our mindset, through our perspective, all of that is a big piece of it too. And then also the technical pieces, like where can we get a resource in here? Where can you get some relief? Where can you get the help? Is just another big piece. Or even on the other end of what Carol said, like sometimes, people are so disconnected with caregiving that they couldn't care for their loved one at home. But sometimes it's the other problem where people won't give themselves permission to have assistance, because now my loved one has progressed medically and I'm not a medical professional, and now it's killing me lifting them or doing the thing.
Right.
And allowing the permission to say, you know what, you can get support. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a caregiver anymore. It just means that you're allowing your loved one to get support, and yourself. So you're still going to be an advocate. You're still going to go and help them. You're still going to do all the things, but you're going to do it with a level of support that makes sense. And then really help them navigate the feelings that come up with that. And then how to do it in a way that you find one that really works for you, because there is good care facilities out there. But we just have to do our homework on them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it
Well,
might not, and it
even-
might not be the first one that you get to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say, hey, this isn't working for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Let's try someone else. Let's try
Mhm.
something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and my dad, he had a stroke and then lost one leg, or lost some toes, and then the leg, and then the other leg. And my mom was his caregiver at home, and she was able to learn how to transfer him.
Mhm.
Is that the right term?
Transfer.
Okay. To
Yeah.
transfer him out of the bed and into the car, into the different things like that. And then to find him a daycare that days a week he went off to daycare, and he looked forward to it just like a little
Yes.
kid does. He couldn't speak, but he was very aware, very aware. And every once in a while he'd try to say, he had speech, but he didn't know words. And, so he couldn't communicate, but he could speak, but he was very aware. He just didn't always have the right words and stuff. And so, but, she was able to learn how to give him care at home.
Mhm.
And then, and the people came in and checked him once or twice a week, and he went to daycare, a couple of times a week. And so they worked that out to give her the
Yeah.
time, give him the time, and still be at home where he was comfortable. And
Absolutely.
such as that. So,
Mhm. And even with like that, like she went and got resources to be able to, bring him places where she could have her time and also learn the skills that she needed. So good for her.
yeah.
Because that was really the physical, piece. But then there's also so much of the cognitive decline that happens where now, people are like, have to look at their loved one 24 hours a day because they can't trust them to not walk away or turn the stove on, and get in trouble. And those are other places to really, I tried to support people around, actually, oftentimes people do much better in a memory care because they're getting the support that they need, and they really do well there. And they don't always anticipate that because they think, well, I'm just putting my loved one in a facility and that's not right. But in certain cases, they actually do much better because they have the actual support, especially through like dementia and things like that, and they can connect with others and have that piece that we don't always anticipate either. So,
Well, and
yeah.
it preserves the relationship too, in
Yes.
so many ways. Because, like you said, it can turn into bitterness
Mhm,
and
mhm.
such. So yeah.
Right.
Well, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, I have a website. It's called sparkyourjourney.net. And then I also offer a free Facebook page that is called the the Healthy Caregiver. And I offer free events there, which I offer master classes, workshops, challenges. And they're all just free events for caregivers to come and learn, to come and connect with each other, to get some support, to get connected with resources. And so, so I really encourage anybody who's interested in connecting to go and check out the Healthy Caregiver on Facebook.
Great, great. And truthfully, I think we should put this up on the Aging Experts as well as Thoughtful Thursdays.
Yeah, we might, yes.
Yeah, because
That would be
that's
good.
very much about the second half of your life. So we may give people a double dose of you, depending
Perfect,
on where they
perfect.
can find you.
Yeah.
So did you have
it's
any
just-
more questions, Barbara?
No, just one of the comments, one of the things that came to mind too is sometimes being a caregiver doesn't mean that you have to do everything for that person.
Yeah.
Let that person blossom if they can. Let them do the things that they can do. Because I know one time a friend of my parents, he had a stroke, and so it got to the point where she absolutely didn't let him do anything.
Mhm.
Well, and
That was
hard
just as
thing.
bad as
Yeah.
that was just as bad.
Yeah, that is a very hard thing. I had a friend and she said the hardest thing was turning the checkbook back over to her husband when he got better. For
Yeah.
us, it was like he was like a toddler as far as he couldn't load anything in the car. He couldn't,
Yeah.
I would have to load the car. I'd have to get him in the car and then go home or go wherever and then come back, but it was that whole process. And
Yeah.
he started saying as he got better, it's going, I can do that. I can load that. He still doesn't play Tetris. Okay. A woman can, or in my opinion, a woman can load a car and put a whole truckload in a little bitty Volkswagen. But, he can't put a Volkswagen's worth in a truck. So he says, that's cool. But he was that way when we married. But, just that being able to give over the loading and the carrying and stuff like that in the beginning, and we've progressed. We've been married for 48 years. So we obviously figured it out. But, as they do get better, when you do find a help to be able to turn loose, because everybody isn't in Barbara's situation where they lost their spouse or whoever,
Right.
or like me with
Yeah.
my parents. I got Keith back and I'm thrilled about that. But there is that process of opening your hands and saying, okay, you can have this back.
Yeah, because we all need our purpose, and even the people we're caring for need to feel like they have a purpose,
Yeah.
that they're contributing to the household. And that's one of the things we do. How do we delegate? What can we delegate to our loved ones so that it takes some weight off our shoulders, but they can also feel that they're contributing, depending on what their abilities are.
Right.
And that makes a big difference. It really, really does. So, is it okay if I just share a couple results that people get if
Sure.
as they walk
Yes,
away?
we have about 4 to 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay.
So just a few things, just because sometimes it's hard to
Yeah.
encompass like what programs, it's kind of like well, what is that exactly? So I
Right.
like to give people some results that my other clients have walked away with. We have a 6-step framework that we work with. We also do individualized plans due to each caregiver's specific needs. And by the end of the program, we have the caregiver is able to have a life and be a caregiver too. So that's our end goal. By learning how to get help, by setting healthy boundaries, really gaining worthiness, becoming a priority in their own life, being able to change negative thought patterns, letting go of the resentment, the guilt, the anger, and rediscover who they are outside of caregiving again. And truly recognizing that being a caregiver is not all of who you are. It's just a piece of who you are. So, so I just like to share that piece to kind of paint a picture of what people walk away with when they're done going through the program.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Cool
Okay.
beans.
Well, we will put down in the notes how to get a hold of Kaley. And so we want to thank you, Kaley, so much for coming and visiting with us today. This has been great, and it's good information. And
Much
well,
needed information.
yes, yes.
Much
One
needed
quick
information.
question. Are there specific things, I mean, you would know how to tell somebody if, if they're trying to hold down a job, do the caregiving and all of that together, there are some programs where they can be paid to take care of their family member or whoever.
It's all really depending on where you live in each county, but to help you get connected with the resources in your area,
Wonderful.
so you can find out what you do
So you can
qualify
help
for.
navigate that also.
Mm-hmm,
Nobody
mm-hmm.
ever mentioned it to me.
Yeah, and it just kind of depends where you live and what your financial situation is, or your loved one's financial situation and all of that. But I really appreciate you ladies inviting me here and letting me share with your community. It's been such a pleasure to connect with all of you today.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming
Deb.
on.
Thanks for coming, Kaley.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.